You know what time it is. It's story time. Hey, I said it's story time. All right. So, I want to tell you guys something that happened to me that had me and my friends rolling. All right. So, I have had many roommates. I've lived with a lot of people between college and being a missionary in South Korea. I've had to live with many different people in different apartments and different dorm rooms. And I'm okay with everyone, right? But I had one roommate that, honestly, from the moment I met this roommate, I did not like this roommate. So let me explain what happened. So I moved into a new apartment when I was in South Korea, and I already had one roommate. She and I, even to this day, were still extremely close friends. And we were happy. Again, we were getting to know each other as we were, setting up our rooms. And while we were talking one day, we realized that we had another roommate. Now, initially, she and I thought that we were the only ones that we were going to be living together, right? But one day when we were sitting in the kitchen, we realized that we had quite a few roommates. Now, if you're following along, I think you know where this story is going. You see, my friend and I'm a very clean person. My friend is also, I can say even now, a very clean person. But when we moved into the apartment, the previous individuals were not as clean. So our new roommates were hundreds of roaches. Even thinking about it makes my flesh crawl. You guys can look that one up. Now, I want to tell you again about a specific roommate. Again, there were many roaches, and we had to figure out how we were going to get rid of the roaches. So she and we were terrified. We did not like roaches, right? So we would clean every day, clean the kitchen, clean the bathroom. We scrubbed everything. But again, the previous tenants, the previous individuals, unfortunately had not kept a clean apartment, so these new roommates were there. So one night, after spending all day cleaning, my friend and my roommate, the actual roommate and I were both tired, and she went to bed and I went to my room. So I went inside my room and I closed my door. I changed my clothes, getting ready to go to bed, and I opened my drawer. I needed to get some socks. And when I opened my drawer, that's when I met my other roommate. Sitting on top of my clothes was one single roach. In my drawer, on top of the clothes. But the interesting thing was when I opened the drawer, he wasn't scared. I opened the drawer and I was literally about this close, about that close to him. But I had been so traumatized, I didn't even scream. I looked at the roach, and the roach looked back at me like, "Hey girl, what's up? I see you moved in. Your room looks nice." And I actually started talking to the roach. True story, y'all. I said, "Here's the deal. Apparently, you're a new roommate. As long as I never see you again, we're not gonna have a problem." And I feel like the roach said, okay. I literally closed the drawer back, and I got in my bed and went to sleep. Now listen, I can laugh about this now. Praise God, a few weeks later, we were able to get rid of all the roaches. It was a very traumatizing experience. We had to call family members in America to get some tips and tricks, but we eventually got rid of all of those roommates. But whenever we talk about that night and that specific roommate, man, it makes my friends and I laugh so hard. We always roll when we talk about that situation. So maybe you've also had an unwanted roommate, and maybe you've had to figure out ways of getting rid of that roommate. A lot of times, your traumatizing experience, later on when you think about it, you actually can laugh about it. I hope you guys enjoyed this story, and I'll talk to you guys next time. You know what time it is. It's story time. Hey, I said it's story time. All right. So today's story is actually about my dad. So we talked about in our lesson, we talked about the 7-day English study plan, right? And you know how much I truly love creating plans for you. Well, that actually came from my dad. My dad is a planner. I remember growing up, my dad held a lot of positions at my church. And one of the positions he held was as the men's director. And my dad would organize, every year he'd organize a retreat for the men of the church. Now, these retreats were not small. My dad would plan activities. He'd plan for people to come and speak to the men. He'd have all the food arranged, all the transportation. My dad is very organized. But I remember he always had a plan. He would always be writing things down. He made sure every I was dotted and every T was crossed. So I got that skill from my dad. Now, this is a skill that has helped me a lot in my life, but I remember one special type of plan my dad would write. He would have a plan when he left the house and had to buy something. And I said my dad would always write things down. So I remember when I figured this out. Now, my dad sometimes would be tasked with going to the store to buy the food for the month. My mom would say, honey, I have to work today. She had to work on the weekends sometimes because she worked at the hospital. And when that happened, she'd say, honey, I need you to get the food for the week or for the month. I said, okay, baby, no problem. And I remember my dad would always have a plan for when he left, what stores he was going to go to, and he'd write out his plan on a piece of paper. And on that plan would also be all the food he was going to purchase. Now, my dad does not steer away from a plan. If it's on his list, if he's made a plan, he's going to do it. He's going to accomplish what's on that paper. And I learned at a very young age, when I wanted something, it would not get purchased if it wasn't on my dad's list, if he didn't have a plan for it. So I said, you know what? Instead of me asking, why don't I just write it down myself? Because I knew my dad is very methodical. Everything goes to a certain plan, a list, and everything is very organized. I said, okay. So I remember my dad, he had his little paper with his list and his plan for the day. He said, all right, baby girl, I'm about to head out. I said, okay, daddy. He said, I'm going to use the bathroom really quickly. I said, no worries, no worries. And he put his plan, his little plan with his list and everything, on the table in our kitchen next to the door. So I watched him walk to the bathroom. I proceeded to pick up my pen, I turned the page of his plan, and I saw where he had the food lists. And I said, ice cream? And I even put the type that I wanted right next to it. Then I wrote the next thing. All right, let me get some of these. And I wrote it on the list, and I put my pen down. And I sat down like nothing happened as my dad walked out the bathroom and said, okay, baby girl, picked up his plan. He does not go without a plan or a list. And he walked out the door. 2 hours later, my dad arrived home with bags of food. And he's unpacking the bags. And I see him pick up a specific bag, and he walked over to our refrigerator. One side was a freezer, and one side was a refrigerator. And he opened the freezer, stuck his hand in the bag, and do you know what he pulled out? He pulled out my ice cream. And he put it in the freezer as if nothing had happened. He didn't ask who wrote it on the list. He didn't ask how it got on there, because as long as it was on the list, it got purchased. And from that day on, I knew if I wanted something, just write it on his list. Now, I'm a full grown woman right now, but I still do that. If I'm at my parents' home visiting them and my dad is going somewhere, I'll just write it on the list and I'll get what I want. So again, plans are very helpful. They help you get what you need to get done. But I hope you enjoyed today's story. Maybe you have one of these funny stories with your dad as well. You know what time it is. Here we go. It's story time. Hey, I said it's story time. All right. So today's story time actually is about one of my favorite memories from high school. So you know that I enjoy drawing and painting. I love things that are beautiful. I love artwork. I love going to the museum and just looking at paintings and photographs. So when I was in high school, I had an awesome art teacher. Her name was Miss Halstead. And I remember one day it was after lunch and I just happened to be walking through the hallway and I was about to pass her classroom and I noticed that Miss Halstead was sitting in her room, the art room, at her desk very quietly. And she looked like she was focused intently on something, but her shoulders were kind of down and she had a pen in her hand and she was looked like she was drawing something. And my curiosity got the best of me. So I walked into the classroom. And even though I walked into the classroom, she still didn't look up. I had to walk all the way to her desk. And then she looked up. Oh, hey, Tiffany, how are you? And I said, I'm fine, Miss Halstead. What are you up to? She said, oh, I'm just sketching. And I said, oh, wow, Miss Halstead, I love sketching too. And that's when she put her pen down and she also put her sketchbook down. And she said, oh, really, Tiffany? You really like sketching? I said, yeah, I really like sketching, but sometimes I try not to sketch when I'm in class because I don't want the teacher to think I'm not paying attention and I want to focus. And she started to talk to me and started to explain how important sketching and doodling actually was. She told me how she, again, as a full adult at that time, I think she was in her 40s, she, even in church, while the pastor was preaching a sermon, she would sketch and doodle in her notebook. Now, I was in shock because, the parents usually tell their children, hey, when you're in church, pay attention, focus on the sermon. So to hear another adult telling me that she actually sketched and doodled during the sermon, it really blew my mind. But she said, Tiffany, here's the thing that people that aren't artists don't know. You see, when we as artists are sketching or doodling, we're actually the most focused. She said, when I'm sketching in church and doodling, I'm actually paying more attention to what the pastor is saying. She said, it's just the way the creative mind has been made. She said that she wanted me to start sketching and doodling more. She wanted me to do it even when I was at church. And again, I have great parents, so they were okay with me sketching because they knew I loved art. But she encouraged me to do it in class, to do it in church. She said, Tiffany, even when you're about to go to bed, an idea may pop in your head. I want you to also sketch then. Write down what pops in your head. She said, Tiffany, you're an artist. And it's actually not a bad thing. Now, I never forgot that. And I remember as I went through the rest of my high school years and then went to college, I continued to doodle and sketch in class. And I remember specifically when I was in college, I had a science class. And we were talking about the anatomy of a frog. And while the teacher was teaching, I was drawing a frog. And I was drawing the different parts of the frog and labeling the parts in my notebook. And what happened was when I took an exam, that image that I had drawn, I added colors and I added all of the information about the frog popped up in my mind. And I aced that exam and I realized how powerful creativity is and how important it is to visualize something because visualizing helps you to remember. So even now, I sketch when I'm listening to a sermon. I sketch when I'm doing something or listening to a presentation because it helps me remember what I'm listening to. Maybe you're the same. Maybe you're an artist and you love sketching, but maybe you're not. Remember, creativity is so important. And that's why I hope you enjoyed today's lesson and today's story. I'll talk to you next time. You know what time it is. Here we go. It's story time. Hey, I said it's story time. All right. Today's story is actually about something you all know that I love. So, Christmas. Now, Christmas was a few weeks ago, and my family and we had a wonderful time together. So, during the day, we had wonderful food together. We decided to make Mexican food. It was delicious. And we had worship together. We talked about all the things that we appreciated that God had given us. And then we went to open up the gifts. So my parents and my sister, my brother-in-law, and my nieces, we all went to the family room where the big tree was, and we were all opening up our gifts. Everyone was opening up gifts, and my sister and we were in shock. Because usually my nieces, they're the kids that get a lot more gifts because, we're older and it's fine. The kids can have it. But this year, my parents decided to give my sister and I a lot of gifts. And I'm not going to lie to you, I was happy. So my sister and I were extremely happy this year. And of course, we got our parents gifts too, but it was really nice. So everyone was happy. I gave my family members some paintings I did and they were happy. I had them framed and everything. So we came to what we thought was the end of our gift giving time. And we were just sitting there talking and my dad suddenly stood up and said, hey, so I have something else that I want to bring out and it's for the entire family. So I need you guys to go to the other room. Now, let me just give you a little bit of history. My dad, for honestly the last, I think 15 years, has always bought himself a gift and put one of our names on it and said, oh, well, thank you. Tiff, I didn't know you bought this for me. And I didn't buy it for him. He bought it for himself. So we had this ongoing joke that my dad likes to buy himself gifts and put one of our names on it. So we just expected it to be another one of those because up until that point, he had not opened a gift that he bought for himself. So he said, I have a gift that's for the whole family. So we're like, what could this be? So he said, hey, just everybody go to the living room. So we went to the living room. We're just sitting there, wait maybe about 5 minutes. And we're like, what is daddy getting? And he comes downstairs with a big black thing. It was a karaoke machine. And he had a microphone. Now, let me explain something. You guys know I like singing. I love music. My entire family, everyone in my family loves music. So we said, oh, yeah, I mean, it had lights and everything. Now, here's the thing. My family, we're very loving. We're cool. Put a mic in our hand. We gonna put a show on. So anyways, so my dad said, all right. So he had everybody's favorite song. So my parents went first. My dad and my mom sang a song and they were just dancing around. And then he said, all right, baby girl, talking to me. He said, Tiff, it's your turn. And there's this song that I really like. When I was in Korea, I sang it all the time we went to the karaoke place. So I'll sing a little bit of it for you. You say I'm crazy, but you don't really know what you've done. I'll stop there. But I sang the whole song, and I mean, I was giving it my all. And then my sister went, and she was singing, and my brother-in-law went up. We had an amazing time. And we laughed so hard because the year we thought my dad was going to get himself something really big is the year he bought something big that the entire family could really enjoy. And it was a great memory singing on Christmas night with my family. Hopefully you also had some wonderful memories, made some wonderful memories with your family on Christmas. And yeah, I hope you enjoyed the story and I'll talk to you guys next time. You know what time it is. Here we go. It's story time. Hey, I said it's story time. All right. It's a brand new year, but I love telling stories. So I want to tell you a very quick story, and it involves my mother, and it also includes food. So you all know how passionate I am about helping you speak English fluently and with confidence, right? So I work hard every day, except for Sabbath or Saturday. I go to church on Saturday. So I work usually Monday to Friday and sometimes on Sundays. Now, last year, this is when I was staying with my parents. They were helping me as I was trying to build my business. I had to work a lot. So I worked again every day except Saturday. I worked about maybe 12 hours a day because I wanted to make sure I provided you with the best English lessons. Now, as we mentioned earlier, when we talked about being swamped, remember that word, right? When you're swamped at work, you can't really eat the healthiest food. So what happened was, it was a Sunday. I had gotten up early. I'm an early bird. And I was working hard on an English lesson for you all. And I noticed that my stomach started to make some noises. Kind of like, brrr. I said, oh, I'm a little hungry. So I went downstairs and my mom happened to be in the kitchen. She said, hey, Tiff, how are you? I said, I'm good, just working. I just got a little bit hungry. And she said, oh, man, your dad and I, we were just talking about how good fried potatoes are on Sunday mornings. I said, yeah, they're really delicious. I wish we had them today. And then I laughed because I knew my mom was busy doing things. My dad was busy doing things. We were all busy. So I didn't expect her to make the fried potatoes because she had things going on too. But I just let her know I really do love fried potatoes. So I got something to snack on. And then I went back upstairs to my office to continue working. Now, about 10 or 15 minutes later, my nose started to get this whiff. This amazing aroma started to come and fill the house. And I said, I know that. Wait a minute. It smelled like caramelized onions. Hey, you caught that too. I could smell the aroma of garlic and onion powder and a little salt and pepper. And I said, wait a minute. What am I smelling? So I tried to work for a few more minutes, but the smell just became overwhelming. You caught that too, right? It smelled so good. So I opened my door and I walked down the steps. And when I got to the kitchen, I saw my mom making fried potatoes for me. She turned around and she said, "Hey, Tiff." And she gave me that smile. And I walked up to her and I gave her a big hug. I said, "Mommy, I really appreciate you. Thank you so much." Because she didn't have to make the fried potatoes. She was also busy. And I hadn't even asked her. But that's what a mother's love will do. She knew that her daughter really did, and I still do, love fried potatoes. And she wanted to do something that seemed so simple but meant so much. Because even to this day, I remember it. So maybe you do things like that for your children or for your family members or for your spouse, just to let them know that you love them. It's the little things in life that mean the most. So for me, it was fried potatoes. What was it for you? I hope you enjoyed this story, guys, and I look forward to talking to you in the next English lesson. You know what time it is. Here we go. It's story time. Hey, I said it's story time. All right. Now, I promised you guys that I would tell you the story about how my internship helped me get a foot in the door for my job at NASA. All right. Now, so what happened was when I was in university, again, I was a very hardworking student. I actually paid my way through school. I had 3 jobs when I was in university because I didn't want my parents to have to pay for anything. So one of the jobs that I had when I was in university was actually an internship, and it was connected to NASA. That's right. My internship was with NASA and one of their contractors. Great internship. I learned a lot, gained a lot of experience. So I again thought to myself, hey, this internship is going to help me get my foot in the door so that I can get a great job. So fast forward, my senior year, last year of university, and we're moving closer to graduation day. But I hadn't gotten a job offer yet. So I was getting a little nervous. Again, I had worked so hard. I thought I had done well in my internship, but I wasn't getting any emails. I wasn't getting any messages related to job offers. So graduation day came. I graduated. Still no offers. Packed my things. My parents came down to my university. It was in Alabama. Packed my stuff, put it in the cars, and we drove back up to Maryland. Weeks went by. 2 weeks went by. Still no offers, no emails, and no phone calls. And I was starting to get a little bit nervous because I had worked so hard at the internship, but they weren't offering me a job. So I said, okay, Lord, as you guys know, I'm a Christian. I started praying a lot. I said, maybe I have to look for a job somewhere else. So I started looking for other jobs. And I remember this like it was yesterday. I was walking in my house and the phone rang. Our house phone rang. I walked into my parents' room where the house phone was, and I sat on their bed. I said, hello. I said, hi, can we speak to Tiffani Claiborne? I said, okay, sure. It's me. And they said, how are you? I was like, I'm fine. They said, how did you enjoy your internship? And that's when I realized it was connected to the internship. So I got a little bit nervous. Again, I still remember this, even though this was literally 17 years ago. I was sitting on the bed and my heart started to race. I said, I really enjoyed the internship. They said, yes, you actually did pretty well. I said, oh, thank you so much. And I waited and I waited. They said, well, Tiffani, did you enjoy your time there a lot? I said, yeah, I really did. I enjoyed my coworkers and what I learned and what I did. They said, okay, would you like to keep working with us? Now, I didn't want to scream on the phone, but I was excited. I said, yes, that would be amazing. I would appreciate that opportunity. When you're on the phone for a professional call, you have to change a little bit. That would be awesome. I would really appreciate if you all gave me that opportunity. Meanwhile, inside my heart, I was like, yes, Jesus, come on now. But I didn't want to do all that on the phone. So I said, yes, that would be amazing. Thank you so much. So the phone call continued. They said, okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to send you an offer via email, and you please let us know if that offer is okay. They're talking about the month, the money, amount of money, my salary. So I got off the phone. Of course, I immediately called my parents. I got a job. So of course I got a job offer. Again, with your family, you can be honest, the way you want to speak, right? So I talked to my parents and then I got the email. And the offer amount, I said, yes, Lord, the salary was good. It was comparable for my experience. It matched where I was going to be living. It was amazing. And in that moment, I realized, man, Lord, that internship really did give me a foot in the door. I now had a job with NASA because of the internship I had while I was in university. So I will never forget the day the offer came. I will never forget that day because there were so many weeks and months prior to that I just didn't think I was going to get a job offer. So maybe you've experienced something similar. You're waiting for a call, or maybe you did something that you thought would get your foot in the door for a specific job, but then there was this period of waiting. Now, I appreciated everything that happened during my time at NASA. I loved the job, but as you all know, I left and I became an English teacher. But yes, hopefully you understood the story. Hopefully you liked it. And hopefully now you even mastered get your foot in the door. You know what time it is. Here we go. It's story time. Hey, I said it's story time. All right. Now, today's story, guys, is connected to what I was teaching you in the tips that I gave you today. We're talking about confidence, speaking English fluently, and I want to tell you about a time that I did not have confidence in myself until I remembered something. So, many of you know, and maybe you do, maybe you know as well, I love sports. When I was in high school, I was voted the most athletic female in my high school. When I got to college, I was voted the most athletic female out of all the females in my college. So as you can tell, I've always loved sports. Very athletic. I like taking care of myself. And my favorite sport has always been basketball. I've been playing it since I was a child. And I remember when I was in college. College basketball is harder than high school basketball, of course. But right before I went to college, there was a gentleman, Mr. Rayford, if he ever watches this. And Mr. Rayford actually coached me a little bit on the side. Not officially, but he would give me tips and he would help me with some of the steps I needed to master to get to the basket, the hoop faster and properly, and some things with dribbling to kind of avoid my opponents. He really gave me some good basketball tips. So when I was around Mr. Rayford, I felt confident in my basketball skills. Now, fast forward, I remember the day it happened. I was a freshman in college, and we were in basketball practice. And my coach, when I was in college, he was good. He was a little bit, he yelled a lot more than I was used to, but, he's a nice guy. So anyways, we're in practice, and I played the point guard. I was the number one or the number two. Number one being the point guard that brings the ball down and hands it out to the team, the players, or number two being the one that helps the point guard and also is a shooting guard. So anyways, at the time, I was playing the point guard during practice, but I was getting a little bit nervous. The coach was yelling. I wasn't able to see the floor properly. I wasn't getting the passes off properly. And the more mistakes I made, the less confident I was getting in myself. I was focusing on my mistakes and not my wins. So practice continued, coach again still yelling. I was feeling bad about myself. Even though I could play basketball, I wasn't doing well. And all of a sudden, the door behind me opened. We were in a big gymnasium, but when the doors open, you can hear. And I turned around and it was Mr. Rayford. I remember it like it was yesterday. This was literally about 20 or so years ago. And I remember like it was yesterday. I turned around. Now, Mr. Rayford was not from, I was in Alabama. That's where my university college was. But I'm from Maryland. And Mr. Rayford is also from Maryland. So I was shocked that he was in Alabama. Mr. Rayford opened the door and he walked in. He didn't say, man, it's so powerful, y'all. He didn't say anything. But he looked me in my eye. He just walked in. He didn't know that I was making mistakes over and over again. So he walked in. I looked at him and he kind of smiled like, hey, Tiff, I was in practice. He wasn't going to interfere. He smiled. I looked at him and I smiled, and he sat down, and something happened. Now, I didn't recognize it immediately, but my coach recognized it. Remember, throughout the entire practice, my coach was yelling, "Tiff, what are you doing? Come on." So I kept making mistakes, and I was focusing on my mistakes, and I wasn't getting better. But all of a sudden, the dribbling got better. My passes got smoother. My shot got better. I was playing like I knew I could. And I only realized it when my coach stopped us from practice and said, "Tiff, I don't know what just happened, but what you're doing right now, yes, keep going, keep doing it." And at that moment, I realized it was because Mr. Rayford had walked into the gym. I associated wins with Mr. Rayford. I associated my ability to achieve. Mr. Rayford always told me, "Tiff, there's nothing you can't do. You can play basketball. You're good." So it really, sorry, my nose is running, guys. So at that moment, I realized, wow, your mindset, what you focus on affects you so much. Now, the rest of the practice went really well. Mr. Rayford was there. I felt confident in myself. And I want you to realize I want to be your Mr. Rayford. I believe in you. I have confidence in your abilities. The only reason I create these lessons and anything I create is to help you realize that you can do it. Don't focus on your mistakes. Focus on your wins. Remember that if you really want to speak English fluently, apply what you learn immediately. Remember all the tips that I've taught you today, and I want to be your Mr. Rayford. I love you all. I genuinely want you to speak English fluently, and I'll see you next time. You know what time it is. It's story time. Hey, I said it's story time. All right. Now, for today's story, I want to tell you about one of my closest friends. Now, we were talking about goals today, right? In our lesson, we talked about different goals people have, health goals, success goals, and different goals people have. But I want to tell you about a goal my friend and I had. It's dealing with health. We had a goal to run 5 miles every day. That's right, 5 miles every day. That may be 7K or 6K, depending on where you live. That's a lot. Now, at this time, I was living in South Korea, and my friend was still in Maryland. We were very close, and again, we were trying to get back in shape. And we decided to have this friendly competition. Now, at that time, we were using an app on our phones called the Nike Running app, right? Very popular app. And you could connect with your friends no matter where they were, and they could see your progress and you could see their progress. So my friend and I decided to do this challenge. Hey, let's run 5 miles every day. Now, I'm competitive, and my friend is also competitive. So what ended up happening was we knew we had to run 5 miles, but then we started to run 5 miles faster than each other. So Korea is ahead of America by about 13 or 14 hours, depending on if it's daylight savings time or not. So I was always ahead of her in the time zone. So I'd wake up in the morning, nighttime for her the previous day, and I would run. And let's say the first time I ran 5 miles in about 50 minutes, right? 10-minute mile. I'd log in to my app and I'd put in 50-minute 5 mile, right? Training. So I'd go to work that day, and during the work day, I'd be working, just excited, feeling good about myself. And I'd come home in the evening, morning time for her, and I would see, her name is Monica. Monica, 5 miles, 49 minutes and 48 seconds. I said, oh, okay, you want to beat me by 12 seconds, right? Again, very competitive, both of us. So now I knew that, okay, she was working and I was going to sleep. So I'd wake up the next morning, her night, early, and I'd go to the gym before work. I said, okay, she did 49 minutes and 48 seconds. I'd get on the treadmill and I'd run, and I got 48 minutes and 30 seconds. 49 minutes and 30 seconds. I said, beat that. Now, of course, we couldn't talk at the time because she was sleeping and I was on my way to work. So I went to work again, feeling good, 49 minutes and 30 seconds. So went to work all day. Everything was great. Came home in the evening, perfect. Looked at my phone, Monica Mack, 5 miles, 48 minutes and 56 seconds. I said, you have got to be kidding me. And we continued to do this back and forth, back and forth. Now, it was friendly competition. We're super close, like sisters. But what I remember about that situation, that time, is we were in the best shape of our lives. Now, excluding college, because in college, you're really slim, But for our adult lives, we were in the best shape because we were challenging each other and it was fun. And we had a goal to get in shape. So sometimes you can have a friendly challenge and it ends up making both of you better. She looked good, I looked good, and we were happy. And we continued doing that for several months. But we ended up having to stop because schedules and other things happened. But we always talk about how much fun we had competing against each other to reach a goal. Maybe you can find a friend and you can start a challenge. Hey, let's learn 3 English vocabulary words every day. And you guys can challenge each other. Something to make your goal, reaching your goal, a fun process. All right, guys, I hope you enjoyed today's story. Remember to get the English with Tiffani app. The link is in the description. I will see you next time. You know what time it is. It's story time. Hey, I said it's story time. All right. So this story that I want to tell you came to mind because last week, so I moved to a new office. Remember earlier, I showed you all the view from my office, right? The view from my office. Remember we talked about that a little earlier? Beautiful office, beautiful apartment, beautiful area. It's wonderful. But I got home late one night last week. I think I got home maybe around 10:30 or 11 p.m. It was dark outside. It was very calm and serene, right? So I got out of my car and I have an automatic lock. So I just hit the button and it locks my car on my key. So I hit the button and it went doo-doo. So I stepped out of my car again, locked it, doo-doo. And I was about to walk on the sidewalk toward my apartment when all of a sudden I heard footsteps behind me. Now remember, it was late at night, it was dark, it was very calm, but all of a sudden I heard footsteps behind me. Now, immediately I thought that someone was following me. So I turned around quickly and there was a man standing there. He had a hood on and he was walking towards me. And I looked at him and he said, "Hey, how are you?" I said, "Dude, you can't just walk up on me like that." It was actually my neighbor. He said, "Oh, I'm sorry." And I think he was cold, so he was walking kind of quickly and he was kind of leaned over like this. And I thought about, man, if I had been in South Korea, it would have been totally different. You see, I was scared at that moment because I thought someone was coming to attack me. But when I lived in South Korea, again, this situation reminded me of South Korea. Because living in South Korea, even at midnight, as a single female living alone, I could go outside at midnight, walk to a park by myself where it was dark, they had a few lights there, and I could walk and not worry about anyone attacking me. That's how safe Korea was. And the situation that happened last week reminded me of how much I miss Korea and walking around at night without worrying about anyone attacking me. Now, my neighbor's great. He didn't do anything, of course, but that fear that someone may have been walking up upon me, that fear went away when I was in South Korea. It's a very safe country. Maybe your country is just like Korea, very safe. Or maybe your country is similar to more of a dangerous country. But I'm glad everything worked out, of course. And my neighbor, he's a cool guy. But it reminded me that sometimes you can be in an area that's safe and sometimes you can be in an area that's not safe. All right, guys, I hope you enjoyed this short story today. Have an awesome week and I will see you all next time.